Hello, everyone, and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where on this week in 2008, the film version of ABBA's Mamma Mia went global and, of course, was very popular. This itself was based on the 1999 musical of Mamma Mia, which I believe in some cities around the world you can still get your ticket to. Now, what made this important and what made it interesting in terms of the overall history and sociology of music? Well, ABBA's Mamma Mia was in many ways the most successful and most domineering jukebox musical of all time. Now, what is a jukebox musical? Well, a jukebox musical is a musical, your Broadway or West End musical that doesn't have any original music. It uses pre-existing music that's either built around a common theme or more often than not around a common artist or group of artists. In Mamma Mia's case, it's of course built around the greatest hits of ABBA. Now, what's interesting about this is that musicals are conceptual in their nature. They have to have a concept. The vast majority not only have a concept and a theme, but a plot. And traditionally, when you think of musicals of that sort, you have a composer and a librettist, who are usually different people, but sometimes the same person, working together to craft a story that's told through music. Not a complicated concept. Many have done it very famously. Rodgers and Hart, Rodgers and Hammerstein, Andrew Lloyd Webber, Stephen Sondheim. The list goes on and on. And of course, the musical borrows a lot of its conceptual structure from opera. And we all know about the great opera composers and librettists throughout the years. We've even talked about someone, Wagner, being my favorite. A jukebox musical is very different in that it takes songs that weren't necessarily, and in most cases, they weren't written to be a companion to one another. They weren't intended to tell a particularly unified story. They don't have a unified theme. In the case of the songs used in Mamma Mia, they were taken from multiple albums of ABBA, all of their big albums. And so you put them all together, and then it's the job of the people creating the musical to find a common theme to sort of string the songs along to. It's sort of like putting in lights on a string of Christmas lights. Okay, I'm going to put the red one here, the blue one here, the green here, the other colors here, the silver one, whatever here, and I'm going to use that. And if I put them all in the right order, it's going to say Noel or Merry Christmas or Santa was here or something like that. But the colors, in and of themselves, the colored light bulbs, don't have any significance. They don't represent a theme or a word. But when you put them in a certain order on a rooftop or a lawn or whatever to spell out a word, there you go. Now the lights are acting as a concept, and that concept is wishing you a happy Christmas or whatever. With a jukebox musical, it's the same thing. We're going to take this song and that song and this song and that song that didn't necessarily have anything to do with one another, put them together and write a story around them that they tell. And that's what the artists who created Mamma Mia were able to do. They took a classic middle-aged love story about a divorcee and her daughter, and they used the songs of ABBA to tell the story. And it was really successful. It wasn't the first musical to try to do that. There were many jukebox musicals before, usually based around a biographical theme, like a biography of Elvis or of Hank Williams. But what ABBA did was take this format and showed that it could be just as popular as the kind of musicals that had traditionally broken box office and soundtrack record sales, the kinds that are original in terms of their story, their libretto, and their music. Things like The Sound of Music, for instance, Oliver, Les Miserables, The Phantom of the Opera, Evita, the list goes on. Not jukebox musicals. This was a jukebox musical, and it achieved that kind of success. And like most of those musicals, it was made into that very popular film. And this, of course, inspired many other jukebox musicals, so much so that it's become arguably one of the, if not the most typical type of formats that you'll see on Broadway or the West End. There's been a Bruce Springsteen musical. There's been a very well-received Queen musical called "We Will Rock You," etc. The list is now too numerous for me to even name. And it was Mamma Mia, first in '99 as a musical, and then as a musical film in 2008, that really opened the floodgates for people to say, right, these jukebox musicals are a format of the future. They're still controversial in some ways. One, there's the old "you took our jobs" argument, and there's some validity to that. It used to be if you wanted to open up a musical, you had to find a composer to compose it rather than a lawyer to knock on the door of a existing musician, whether it's Elton John or ABBA or whoever, and say, please, can we use your music? Can we license it? It's a bit there's a lot of money exchanged. It's a bit more than please and thank you. And in many cases, the musicians who composed or performed the music are actively involved, at least at some level, of the production of the musical. Brian May, for instance, was deeply, deeply involved in the "We Will Rock You" musical. But it is true that you're not composing anything original. You're using the sweat equity of the musicians that already took the time and effort to write and perform their songs. So there's that argument. And then there's the other argument of, has the plot lost all meaning? Are people really just going to watch a cast of musical actors with a pit orchestra singing their favorite songs? In other words, is it a Broadway West End version of a cover band? And there's some truth to it, but again, the other argument is, well, what's wrong with the cover band? Absolutely nothing at all. Although that is an argument that we see. And then there's some people that say that it's made audiences lazy because it's made them afraid to hear new things. They can't break out of their comfort zone. When you're going to a musical that opens in 1999, based on music, the majority of which was written in the '70s or very early '80s, it's not as though you're going to hear the songs for the first time. So there's an argument about the audience is becoming too comfortable. On the other hand, though, there's a counter argument that says, well, this might be a way to introduce young people to the music who will be hearing it for the first time. Because if you weren't around when ABBA was at their peak in the '70s and early '80s, but you were around in 2008 to see the Mamma Mia film, that might be the first time you've been exposed to ABBA. And since ABBA were long past their performance prime by then, it might be your only chance to experience them. One could make the argument that one of the reasons Queen is one of the many reasons that Queen is so popular on Spotify among young people is because through keeping the band young by bringing people like Adam Lambert, who had television success before joining the band in, by promoting this musical, "We Will Rock You," by making films, Queen is being kept contemporary in the eyes of young people, even though their lead singer has been dead since the early '90s. And so there's the argument that jukebox musicals and the films that are usually made of the more successful ones are ways to introduce the music to new audiences, and in doing so, keep it alive. I think all of these arguments are true. There's truth to the contradictions. Yeah, it's keeping audiences in a comfort zone. It's not allowing new composers to get as much of a spotlight because so many of the theaters are being filled with jukebox musicals. But on the other hand, it's a chance for artists to reimagine their songs in a new context. It's a chance to reintroduce people to the music. And it's an opportunity to think of thematic concepts and plots to make essentially stage set concept albums out of music that wasn't intended to be so. Or very interesting indeed. Like, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Take care.